Hi everyone, welcome back to Up With The Chaldeans. I'm Anthony Toma, your host, and today we're here with Lydia Michael, speaker, owner of the Blended Collective, and author of Brand Love.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. We've had a heck of a time trying to pin you down to get you on this show. Finally blessed with your presence.
Thank you.
Why don't you start? You're very welcome. Why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about your background and what all this brand love is about and culture?
Yeah. So when you asked to tell you about my background, I don't really know where to start because I feel like there's just a lot.
Okay.
But I think, originally I'm from Germany, so I was born and raised in Germany and came here in 2005 with my parents and my sister. And most of my family, if not all of my family, really has always been in the U.S.
Okay.
So it was sort of us in Germany by ourselves, if you will. And finally, in 2005, my parents decided to come here and be with family. And I've
Where did
been
they
here since.
come from, though? Where did your parents come? Where were your parents born, and where did they come from?
So they still came from Iraq.
Okay.
And at the time, my mom's family came to the U.S. and my dad's family went to Germany.
Okay, so that's what landed them there.
Yeah, basically, right. Yeah, so
Gotcha.
they really spent more than 30 years in Germany, a lot longer
Wow.
than they were in their own hometown, yeah.
That's crazy. So go ahead, finish your journey.
Yeah, so came here in 2005, and that's sort of when everything started. Yeah.
And when you say everything, what's everything?
I always say I really became an adult here in the U.S. So I had just finished high school in Germany. I came to the U.S., had to actually do another year of high school here. So I spent 13 years in high school.
Okay.
And then started college.
That's a lot,
went
that's a lot of high school, 13 years.
It's, it's funny because,
You mean school?
yeah,
Not
well, sorry, yes.
5.
School.
5 high school
So,
years.
correct,
Gotcha.
yes. So in Germany, we have 13 years of schooling.
Okay.
Yeah, which now that's changed over the years and it's just 12 now, but
Because you filed a complaint?
yeah, I wish.
You're like, you're not having 13 years no more.
Yeah, so I
That's bad
still
luck.
ended up doing my 13 years,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
So go ahead. 13 years high school, and then
Yeah, came here and then I did that last year of high school and then I went to college and I studied marketing management at Wayne State University.
Okay. Michigan.
Yeah.
In Michigan.
Here in Michigan,
Okay.
yes, in Detroit. Yeah.
And you've been here ever since?
I've been here ever since, but in 2015 and 16, I actually moved back to Germany for a couple of years.
Really?
I did, yeah. And it was such a culture shock because you would think, oh, I'm going back home,
Yeah.
familiar with everything. But it wasn't like this at all because I had been so accustomed to the system here, being here for 10 years at the time, and then decided to go back for grad school. So it was really a turning point in my life, both professionally and personally, to just kind of pick up and go back. A lot of it was personal fulfillment reasons for me, to really be able to experience Germany in a different way as an adult, but also really reach my potential that I never felt like I reached when I left. I was, a little bit
What was
younger,
missing?
if you will. I think, growing up in Germany, to me, that was home and that was sort of all I knew.
Yeah.
And so leaving right at the time when I was finishing high school, it sort of felt like I never really got to experience what it was like to work there or really just live my life as an adult. I mean, I still look at myself as, at the time, still being a kid when I came here to the U.S., not having those experiences. And so a lot of it was really proving to myself that I was able to do that.
Right.
Going back, able to do that. But also just professionally, I had just studied business at Wayne State and I was working in the music and entertainment space for about 5 years. And at that time, I felt like I had sort of reached that growth with the company that I was working with, and decided to leave. And that was really the time where I was trying to reassess, okay, where am I going next? What does my professional career look like? And a lot of what I've always loved to do is the international side of business. So whether it's marketing or not, it's always been around cultures. It's always been around, the international international side of things. So that to me was another reason to go back to Germany and be able to get that experience in a new market essentially, and then come back here and be able to say, you know, I've studied there, I've worked there, and bring that experience into the work that I do now.
But you said it was a culture shock. What was the shocking part?
I think a lot of it was tied to me being here in the US and just things working differently in the system, right?
Give us an example of like what was shocking about it. Like what?
So I'll give you one example. I think culturally in the US or in Germany, people are very direct.
In Germany?
In Germany.
Okay.
They're very direct. They say things how they are, and sometimes it can come across very blunt or
rude,
cold, or some people would interpret it as that, but it might not be, right? It's just sort of how the culture is. And in the US, I don't think it's like that at all. I think sometimes people like to beat around the bush, and they're a little bit afraid of, saying things because it can come across offensive and whatnot. And that's the total opposite in Germany. And so when I went back and I faced a lot of that, not just, with friends, but also working there again, I was like, well, hang on a second, I'm not used to this. Like, where is this coming from? But actually, it helped me rediscover parts of myself too, though, because as much as I embrace the Chaldean culture, but I also very much embrace the German culture. And I sort of, over the years, have been able to mix and match the things that I like.
Blending them.
Yeah. What a great transition.
All right. Well, so speaking of transitions, the next time any of you that are born and raised in Germany that want to go back for a couple of years, stop off in New York for 6 months and then go to Germany.
Why do you say that?
Because then you get the blunt and the rudeness and the directness. And the,
yeah, I guess.
Yeah. But so we transitioned into the blended collective. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, and this is actually right after I came back from Germany. So I spent a couple of years there. I was in grad school and I was working at L'Oreal, and I wrote my master thesis with them for one of the brands that was focused on hair care.
For guys like me that only got to high school, a little bit after high school.
Yeah.
What is a thesis or the master thesis?
So I spent about 6 months of my master's program towards the end to work with a company, which was L'Oreal at the time, and write a master thesis, which essentially is a project or a paper around a topic that you choose with the company, where you focus your work and your research on during those months. Wow. So I focused it on one of the hair care brands that I was working with at the time, and the topic was brand love. Oh. And that was sort of my introduction and really my falling in love moment with the topic of brand love. So fast forward, I came to the US and I was, again, trying to figure out, so late 2016 is when I came back.
Okay.
I was in Germany for about 2 years, came back to the US, and I was like, okay, now I'm done with grad school. Yes, I've worked before, but in my mind, I was sort of telling myself that I wasn't ready to be an entrepreneur or be a business owner.
Relaunching, rebranding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It was definitely part of like this personal rebranding.
Yep.
And I came back and I was like, oh, you're not ready for this. And it's always something that I've wanted to do, but it never felt like it was the right time. And so I was applying for jobs for probably 6 to 9 months.
What were some of the jobs that you interviewed for?
Oh.
You don't have to name the name of the company, but
yes.
just kind of
okay.
Industries.
Yeah, I mean, industries, definitely like e-commerce, retail, musical nonprofit organizations, because I had been in entertainment and music, so I was trying to possibly get back into that. Yeah, I mean, really.
And none of them were lucky enough to land you.
Well, I got an opportunity to take one here in the US, and I got another opportunity to go back to Germany.
Oh, wow.
It's like, well, this doesn't really make a lot of sense because I just came back from there,
Correct.
But I wasn't passionate about any of them. And at that point in my career, I felt like I really wanted to focus on something that I loved doing, that I wanted to wake up to every day. And I didn't really find that. And so the longer that journey of searching for a job took, the more I thought to myself, well, maybe this is a sign. I'm all about signs.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, maybe this is a sign for me.
Right here.
Yeah.
Neon
There you go.
sign. Yeah. So go ahead. Maybe it's a sign for you.
It was a sign for me, and I felt like maybe this is the time. Maybe nothing is really working out the way I want it to because I'm meant to do something completely different. And so I was still continuing to apply for jobs, and at the same time started to think about, okay, if I started a company, what would that look like? Naturally, because I had been in marketing, international marketing, I also, before going to Germany, had a small side business that I was running at the time called Authentic Lingo that focused on cultural and linguistic training for expats that were coming to the US.
You got to unpack that a little bit.
So think of anybody that works in the automotive industry that is transferred here to the US
okay.
from any country in the world to work here at Stellantis or Ford or
So you
Bosch,
would teach them
any of those.
English?
I wouldn't necessarily teach them English. It was more so the business and cultural training.
Okay.
So how would they operate in a US business environment compared to an environment that they experienced in Germany, China, Mexico, Spain?
Yeah.
So a lot of it was culture. Some of it was English,
Okay.
but it was always tied to this business side.
How it works.
Correct. And so having done that and having done marketing, I was like, well, I love culture, but I never liked that work enough to do it full time.
Yeah.
And marketing to me, I was like, it's such a saturated field. There's so many people who are already running marketing companies. How can I differentiate my business and make it and add this uniqueness to it, right? Where it not only fulfills what I'm looking for, but also solves a problem in the marketplace.
Right.
And so doing research, I saw that multicultural marketing was actually a thing that companies were doing. Corporations, had multicultural marketing departments. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it was this aha moment where I was like, this is it. Like it's multicultural marketing. That's what I'm going to do. And from there on, I started thinking of a name. I wanted something that was meaningful and that just made sense when you hear it, and not this obvious, Lydia Michael marketing type of thing. So I did that. I started building the website. I created business cards. And so fast forward a few months later, keep in mind I was still applying for jobs. Fast forward a few months later, I was like, okay, now I have a business. Like I have a website, I have cards, I have a name, like I have everything I need. And so I started going out into the community. And naturally, where I felt most comfortable at the time was the German American Business Chamber, the Chaldean American Business Chamber, right? Because culturally, I felt comfortable in those environments. And I felt like I had something to offer, but also it was just sort of a natural way to start promoting my business.
Yeah.
And so from there on, it just sort of took a life of its own.
And what exactly is it? You said multicultural marketing.
And
what
brand
is that?
consulting, yeah.
Okay, what is that?
So essentially what we do is we work with organizations and companies to help them enrich their marketing efforts with culture and emotion. So
marketing efforts, marketing to whom?
Marketing to anybody that they're trying to reach, that the company is trying to reach.
Customer.
Correct. So B2C, business to customer,
Okay.
Business to consumer. So we help them from the very early stages of building their brand. So coming up with a name, coming up with their entire brand visually. What does that look like? Also helping build out the experience and the story, the messaging, really from the get-go of creating a brand.
Branding and rebranding, right?
Branding, rebranding.
So if you could you mentioned a startup almost, right? So because you would go to teach them and pick a name for them and everything. But what about someone that's already in business?
Yeah.
You could support them as well, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. So that was just sort of the starting point of how early we can start on the journey of brand building. But then a lot of times people come to us, they already have a great established brand in place. And they might have this one problem that they're not able to solve on their own, right? It could be things like, I am putting out this new campaign and I want to reach this demographic, millennials, Gen Z, a specific culture. We don't really know how to go about this. We don't really know where to find these people, or we don't really know how to attract them, right? It could be things like that. It could be, we have our website with our mission, vision, purpose, but we feel like it's outdated and we don't really know how to communicate our story or tell our story. That's
Yeah.
a big pain point that I see a lot of times with business owners is they know as the founder what they're all about, but they don't necessarily know how to get the story out there,
or
how to say it in
articulate
the
it.
right
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
For sure. And that's what you do.
That's what we do, yes.
And so what's the process in that? So they have to reach you somewhere, right? So where do they reach you?
Yeah. So people come to us in a lot of different ways. Now that we've been around for almost 6 years, a lot of it is word of mouth.
Okay.
They might find us through other clients that we've worked with. We're a part of a lot of different organizations and groups.
Yep.
So, that way, we also have a lot of partnerships with economic development organizations where they typically will bring us on to help consult with small businesses. And so our name is sort of in that pipeline where people can find us.
Are these grants that the companies are getting?
So sometimes, yes. So sometimes when those economic development organizations receive funding, so you saw a lot of that during the pandemic, the
Yeah.
ARPA funding, which is actually continuing now, they receive that funding and they do that because they want to, the goal is to help small businesses in the community face and solve their difficult challenges in business and marketing
Right.
and all sorts of different spaces, right? Obviously, we come in with marketing and branding and strategy. And those organizations will reach out to companies like ours to come in and provide those services. And essentially, the business doesn't have to pay anything.
Gotcha.
It's the organization that covers it all.
So you're the head honcho of the Blended Collective,
Yeah.
the founder. Is there a partner or is it you?
So there's no partner.
Okay.
It's just me. But there is a small team that works with me. So I have a couple of senior consultants, designer that we bring on for projects that require that type of work.
Yep.
And I have a marketing assistant as well. So we're a small team. But I always say small, but mighty.
Mighty, yeah.
Yeah.
Pack a big punch.
Yeah.
So in the intro, I mentioned speaker. Why don't you talk a little bit about your speaking experience?
Yeah. So the speaking started very early on when I built Blended Collective. And my main thing was, okay, I'm this new company. I just came back from Germany. I was away for 2 years, sort of was finding myself having to rebuild or recreate a lot of new relationships in the business to sort of get it up and running. And I created a speaker event series that was running for 2 years, right up until the pandemic.
Shit.
Was doing that every quarter. The very first one that we did was with another friend of mine who also owns a company. We did it at Microsoft's flagship store in New York, and that sort of kicked the whole thing off. And then I came back to Detroit and did it every quarter from there on. So the goal was to host a panel every quarter, and it was free to the audience and to the community, and people would come in to sort of attend and learn more about multicultural marketing. We would host it across different industries, so whether it was automotive, finance, entertainment, like all these different industries, and I would bring in speakers on the panel that I would host, curate, and sort of facilitate throughout the session. So it was really new for me, but the main goal of why I wanted to do that early on was to create brand awareness.
Right.
Yeah, I felt like it was free advertising, but it was in a way where I was also building thought leadership, and it was sort of a give and take, right? I'm building my brand. I'm getting a lot of feedback early on, how that resonates with people, what they want to see more of. But I'm also creating all of this content that I'm able to use that we're still using to date, whether it's photography, content, and whatnot. And I was building all of these relationships with all these people that were coming onto the panel.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my introduction to speaking, or people sort of looking at me as, oh, she can host an event, or she can, speak at this conference. And it just started from there on.
So you branded the cultural branding component of your life, of everyone's life, because you put these panels together to kind of educate on what cultural branding was, right? That's cool.
Yeah.
So you branded yourself as the authority of.
Pretty much, yeah, as a thought leader of all of that. And that's where it started with the speaker event series. And then now over the past few years, I've been speaking at marketing conferences nationally, talking about a lot of times about brand love, actually. So it's always about multicultural marketing, brand love, and then with colleges and universities, those typically pull me in to do sessions on personal branding and help students understand that they're essentially a brand and how to treat that and build that while they're in college and beyond.
Very cool. Let's get into the book, Brand Love. So I think we touched on what triggered the launch of this, but you said it was 2015?
2016 is when I was working at L'Oreal, and then I wrote the master thesis, yeah.
Oh, and before I have to go look it up, is L'Oreal a German company?
So originally from France.
Okay.
But so L'Oreal is this conglomerate that houses over 30 brands in-house.
Okay.
So brands like, Essie nail polish, Garnier Fructis hair care, or the skincare, a lot of different segments in that space with a bunch of brands. So when I was in Germany, in that building, they had 30 brands going. So I was in the hair care, Garnier Fructis, those green shampoo bottles.
Yep.
Next to me was, Garnier skincare, and then 5 doors down, it was Essie nail polish. It was literally, and that was the headquarters for Germany then. And every single market has that. So, with marketing, it's interesting because when you look at any products that you buy in the market, they're always adapted to the local market because the needs are different of every customer, right?
Yeah.
So,
and the message.
Absolutely, yeah. So
it's very cool. So let's get back to the book.
Yeah.
So that was, so I kind of led you down the wrong path, and then I cut it there. But so it was 2016, you said. So this has been in the works for that long?
No.
Okay.
So I actually never had the intention of writing a book. Not about brand love, not a book in general. This idea came to me in 2021, so 2 years ago.
Okay.
Only 2 years ago. And that's when I was traveling and speaking at marketing conferences about this topic, and I would get feedback, and I was hosting workshops around the topic because I was so passionate about it.
Yeah.
But also I was including this concept of brand love into the work I was doing with Blended Collective. So the feedback I was receiving was always very positive. People were very intrigued on what this is and how they can implement it.
Yeah.
And so in 2021, I was like, I've been researching this topic for 5 years at that point. So passionate about it. It really felt like it was something I could write a book about in a very natural way. And so I had the idea, and then one of my mentors really encouraged that thought. And when I was talking to some of my friends who had published books, they're like, well, self-publishing is, really great way to put this out. They had done it. And so they really advocated for me to do it that way. And I was still trying to figure out the process, and then said to myself, this is not really the right time for me to write a book. I can't even imagine, running the company, writing the book. Like, it's just not happening right now. Put the thought aside. I tell you, 3 to 4 months later, that same year, it was December of 2021, I get an email, and it's from my now publisher, Kogan Page, and it was the acquisitions editor at the time. She was the one sort of responsible for sourcing authors. And she sends me this email, and she said, hey, I saw you speak at this marketing conference. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, this is just so weird.
It's gotta be a sign.
It's, again, another sign, right?
Yeah.
I was like, is this legit? Like, I started looking them up, doing research, and then I remembered that I had a friend who had worked in that industry back in Germany, who now lives here actually. And so I asked her about the publisher, and she's like, oh yeah, they're totally legit. They're a great publisher. You should talk to them. And that's when I actually set up that call. And from there on, it sort of just became this back and forth negotiating, trying to figure out, what makes sense, and weighing that option against the self-publishing option.
Yeah. And
it really made sense for me to do it with them, and that's when I started in 2022. Last year we started doing that, and started writing just about a year ago.
How did you decide on like the framework, the chapters, I guess you were living it, right? So you had to put it down on paper.
Yes.
And then someone helps you kind of sort it out, or how does it work?
That's a really good question. So you just said it in the best way possible. You said you were living it.
Yeah.
And I really was living it. And I
Right.
think that's why I was able to just open up myself in terms of being vulnerable, being emotional to write this book about a topic like that. I had, at the time, by the time we agreed to do this with the publisher, I had about a 4-month window to write the book in order for it to come out this summer.
Okay.
So 4 months of literally day in, day out, just writing,
And
researching,
running a business.
running a
Yeah.
business. At the time, I actually moved and we were renovating a house, and literally
Jesus.
all at the same time. You know when they say, when it rains,
Yeah,
it pours?
when it rains, yeah.
Literally. All at the same time. I was like, I cannot pass this, pass on this opportunity. So I was writing the book for 4 months, and over the years, I had collected articles and sort of created this database about brands that I noticed in the industry that, had a campaign that resonated with one of the topics that I wrote, and things like that. So I went back to that, but I also did a lot of research during that time and connected with about 40 brands for the book. So I talk about more than 100 brands in the book, but 40 of them I actually had to reach out to and say, hey, I'm writing this book. Can I feature you? Can I do an interview? Had to get permission a lot of times, right? Because it's obviously copyright and whatnot. So all of that was happening during that period and writing. And then to your point, how did I organize all of that? It was evolving throughout that time. So I would put things down onto paper. I wanted to create not just a book that was relevant right now, but something that was important for years and years to come. There's still books that I go to that are 30, 40 years old that I still see value in. And I wanted to create something like that that was timeless and that people could go back to. And so I wrote it in a way where it was relevant to topics that are happening today, but also just including brands that really helped shape the industry, whether it was direct to consumer, whether it was, brands who focus on purpose and sustainability. It could be all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
But the framework was really me breaking it down and asking myself, what is brand love? And what are the different elements that are a part of that?
Right.
And
So
then
what
organizing
is
my
brand
thoughts.
love? Since you brought it up.
Yes. So brand love is an emotional and long-lasting connection between brands and customers that result in loyalty and advocacy. So think about the brands that you love and that you support. No matter what, right? You're always going back, whatever product it is.
Yeah.
Do you have one that you can think of?
That
And it could be anything.
Neutrogena face wash.
Okay, but why?
Because I've used it for 30 some years, and as a kid growing up, I had a little acne, and it took care of it, and I just use it every day.
Yeah, see, and I mean, as an adult though, you could probably go into the market and try and find different products, but there's
Right.
a reason that you're connected to that. And the example you just gave, a lot of times it could be memory as a child, and just sort
I
of
could be washing my face for the last 20 years for no reason, because acne was going to go away anyway.
maybe.
At least I have a clean face.
Yeah, but that's essentially what brand love is. It's emotional marketing. It's focusing on how we as brands and organizations can build a relationship with customers that goes beyond a transaction, that is human, that is emotional, that helps us connect in the best way possible. When you look at AI right now, and ChatGPT and OpenAI and all of that is a big conversation. If all that is telling us is that we have to learn how to be more human, both as companies and as customers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's a big part of what I focus on in the book, is how can you be more human? How can you be more personable,
Yeah.
relatable, all of these different things. And I highlight a lot of different drivers in the book that lead to the journey of brand love. So it's not just one thing that you do and you're like, oh, I'm this loved brand now.
Yeah.
But it's over time, things that you do that could revolve around being authentic, being cultural, being diverse, being sustainable, being trustworthy, right? Those are all elements that in our personal lives and relationships are very important and create this element of love.
Right.
And it's similar to how we connect with brands, essentially.
In business.
In business, yeah.
So anyone that is in business should pick up this book?
Yes. So not just marketers, actually.
Right, no,
Yeah.
of course.
And
Anyone in business, anyone in any kind of business that understands marketing but should understand branding. So a brand and marketing, branding and marketing are two different things.
they are. Branding is really a part of marketing. Marketing is this overarching umbrella term,
Yep.
but branding falls within marketing. But yes, to your point, everyone that's in business, entrepreneurs, even if you work for a company,
Right.
and you're responsible for consumer-facing strategies, communications, messaging,
Yeah, and you want to impress the boss.
Yes.
You read the book.
Yeah.
You bring some of the ideas to the table at the weekly meetings, and then you look like a genius.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
So now-
easy, simple, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So now all the companies have to buy copies
There
for
you
their
go.
employees.
For all their employees. Yeah.
There you go.
So you put me on the spot with mentioning a brand. Why don't you mention one that you love or have a love brand relationship with?
Yeah, so it might not even be a tangible brand. A lot of times we think it has to be a tangible brand.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, a service that we tap into or a place that we love to go to.
Yeah.
A place that I love is actually one of the local spots here. It's Perfumery by Day, perfume shop by day.
Okay.
And in the evening, it's a cocktail bar. It's a really neat concept
Wow.
that I think is very unique. But also, to answer your question, just in general, I gravitate towards things that are different,
Yeah.
that are unique, that
Yeah.
have different, So to me, those are loved brands, and those are brands that I like to support because they really put an effort to stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that you mentioned it, and we have like 10 million viewers, you're probably not going to be able to get into the place anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to find a
I'm
new,
not-
new
yeah.
love.
Maybe.
All right. So we covered about everything, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to plug or mention? Do you have any speaking events coming up? Do you have a book coming out?
Well, the book is already out, yes. So
Yeah.
definitely can plug that. But yeah, Brand Love is available on Amazon and anywhere books are available. And definitely pick up a copy if you're in the space of either building or growing a brand. As far as speaking engagements, I don't have any scheduled right this second.
Okay.
I still have a few book signings that I'm doing and just finished the ones in
Where,
Detroit.
where are the book signings?
So we just finished the ones in Detroit. We have
Yep.
one coming up next week. I don't
Okay.
know if that
This
will. This
No, so this
episode
won't air.
will air.
Yes, it would have already done. It would already have been a successful book signing.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I have another one coming up in Chicago.
Okay.
So.
So you're traveling. Is it a multi-state kind of
Like a book tour.
Yeah.
It's
Or
not
just Chicago. You have some ties in Chicago, connections in Chicago. Why'd you pick Chicago?
so simply because I'm going to be in Chicago visiting my sister.
And then
So
you just
it
plan
just made
yeah.
sense, and Chicago is a really good market, especially for the topic and marketing
sure.
agencies that are there. So it just made sense in that way. There's not a book tour per se.
Mm-hmm.
I just spent a little bit of time in New York to meet the publisher and actually drop off a few copies to companies that are featured in the book.
Oh, cool.
So that was exciting. And then obviously being in Detroit, we had some of the signings here, and then Chicago. So those are the three markets as of right now.
So as a marketing guru, how are you marketing the book besides just the signings and this show?
In this show, of course. Can I say, though, that marketing the book is more work than actually writing the book?
Oh, yeah.
I had
sure.
I really didn't know. I thought the minute I turned it in, I was like, oh, now I can breathe.
Yeah.
And then the real work
Yeah,
started.
right, but it wasn't.
No. So a lot of it is tapping into the companies and organizations that I'm connected with and reaching out to their database and their group of people, to bigger groups of people that way, but also tapping into a lot of the companies and brands that are featured in the book who are very happy to support that now in-house at their companies. And just social media, video marketing, partnerships. We've done a few giveaways on social media to really create the awareness. And yeah,
Great.
LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah.
That's really my audience, where
At LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is a big, because it's all professionals and the right professionals that I want to reach, and you can really do some personalized outreach that way. So that's been a good
Gotcha.
way to promote.
So if someone wants to reach you for Blended Collective work, where do they go for that? How do they reach you there?
Yeah. So they
Maybe
can
your
go
social channels, your numbers, website, all that stuff.
everything.
Okay.
So blendedcollective.com, and then also lydiamichael.com for speaking engagements. And I am really all over social media,
Yeah.
Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. LinkedIn is probably one of the better ways to connect with me. So yeah.
For sure. Has this title for a book not been taken? How's that possible?
Right?
No, it has not, right?
That's
this is it.
You're the first one to ever ask that question. Yeah, good
Really?
question. No. So we actually did quite a bit of research on the title, and it was not taken in that way.
I cannot believe it.
It's a really good title to put on the book because for
Yeah.
SEO reasons, I mean, it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
is really
That's
good.
great.
So
Good for you.
yeah.
Well, so we do wrap up each show by asking, what does it mean to you to be Chaldean?
I think to me, being Chaldean means being part of a very rich culture that has a lot of tradition, but also has a lot of values. So to me, a lot of it has been around the value of family, the importance of family, but also the importance of faith. And I think that is really what helps keep me grounded as a business owner and just in life in general.
That's beautiful. So the success has not gone to your head yet.
No, and
All right.
it won't.
It won't. Okay, cool. Thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And much success on the book and the Blended Collective and speaking engagements and all that other good stuff. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us, y'all.